And this is why I think structure is the most important thing that all producers need to understand. And this is the biggest thing to take away from all these structures. And this is exactly how we made the beat. Alright, what's good YouTube? So in this tutorial, I'm going to talk about one of the most important things most producers seem to fail to understand. Something that significantly affects your sound selection, how you create your melodies, the vibe you create with your beat, as well as the likelihood that you'll land a placement or sale. But despite that, it's still something that the majority of aspiring producers don't fully understand. The thing I'm talking about is song structure. Structure is perhaps the biggest thing that separates the top producers from everyone else. I can't even count how many incredible beats and songs I've heard that were single-handedly ruined by a lack of structure. And people have this misconception that song structure simply means how to order your patterns in a song, but it's really much more than that, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you. So first I'm going to go through the general structures that most beats follow. So what I did was I deconstructed 100 rap beats and I laid out all the structures they followed so you guys could see. So here are the things they all had in common. 1, the intros are no more than 2 bars. 2, 99% of the time the chorus is going to be 4 bars. The verses normally don't have more than 3 change-ups and are always lengths of 4, 6, and 8. Pre-choruses, if you're going to use them, are no longer than 2 bars, sometimes can be 1. And I also noticed that between the choruses and the verses, you never want to use odd numbers. You never want to have a chorus that's 3 bars, you never want to have a verse that's 5. You want to stick to even numbers. And I also noticed that every single one of them had no more than 5 change-ups in the beat. So you don't want to have too many crazy transitions or changes in melodies and sounds. And this is the biggest thing to take away from all these structures, is that they're all repetitive. Repetition is what makes a hit song. And to elaborate on this further, there's this thing called SongSim, which is basically this AI that draws out hit songs, and what it shows is that simplicity and repetition is a key trademark of a good song. So let's talk about producer mistakes. Most of the mistakes that producers make while structuring their beats is not understanding all the types of sections that make a song. The sections that I'm talking about are the intro, the various types of verses, the pre-chorus and the pre-hook, the chorus, as well as the outro. So let's talk about the intro. So this is what's played at the beginning of the song. It serves as a teaser for the upcoming chorus or verse, as well as it sets the overall vibe of the song. The intro is fundamental to get right because it's almost always going to be the deciding factor to whether an artist will use your beat or not. You can make the best beat in the world, but if the intro doesn't immediately grab the listener's attention, they won't listen to it in the first place, no matter how good the rest of the beat sounds. The most common mistakes people make with the intro is making their intro too long. Artists will always have a vast selection of beats always at their hand. That means that they go through them incredibly quickly. When you stall with the intro and you make it too long, the artist listening to the beat, or any person in general listening to the beat as a song, is going to skip to the other song or other beat because the intro is taking too long to drop. So you don't want to keep the artist waiting. Another mistake people make is not having enough sounds in their intro or having too many sounds in their intro. The problem with having not enough sounds in the intro is that right away when the beat plays, it needs to grab the attention of the listener or the artist you're trying to get to rap on the beat. And like I was saying with there being an overabundance of beats, likewise, if the intro is boring and bland but the rest of the beat is really good, it's not going to matter because the intro is so boring due to the lack of sounds that the artist is just going to skip to the next beat. And the problem with having too many sounds is the intro is usually played right before the chorus. If you don't take out a certain amount of sounds, then you won't have any to bring in to increase the energy later when the chorus plays right after the intro. So as an example, here's a beat that I think sounds really good. So the thing about it is that sounds really good, but if he listens to the intro before that and it sucks or it's not interesting, it's not going to matter because he's going to skip through the beat. So for example, if I used one of the weaker sounds in my beat for the intro, it'd sound like this. So no matter how good the rest of the song sounds, the second he hears that intro, all he's going to be saying is, "God damn, this beat was garbage." It does not draw the listener in. There's nothing interesting about it. But now if I were to use the main lead melody that plays in the beat, it would sound like this. Overall, that sounds so much better. Alright, so next section. This next section I labeled as verse 1. This is the first part of the verse, usually playing right after the chorus, a pre-hook, or an intro. This is where you're going to play the minimal amount of melodic components in the song, along with the drums to give it rhythm. So basically what I'm trying to say is the first part of the verse is when you lower the energy, but still allow the artist to rap on the beat. The biggest mistake people make with this is not choosing the right sound to lead the first verse. So this can mean two things. It could mean not using the same sounds from the intro, but most of the time it's going to be because they don't use the loudest melodic sound for the verse that was played in the chorus, or when they use a sound that doesn't provide any sort of rhythm at all. And another general mistake you can make with the verse is not taking out enough sounds from the chorus or the pre-chorus when you played it. So the artist needs to know when the verse is coming in. So the only way you can really indicate that is taking things out. So what I'm saying is you basically need to give the artist an indication that the verse is coming in, and the only way you can really do that is by taking sounds out from the chorus that may have played right before. So here's another example of this in a beat I made. So it's a pretty good chorus, but now we basically need to decide how that chorus is going to transition into the verse. And like we were saying, there's certain sounds that we want to keep from the chorus that need to transition in the verse to both keep the rhythm and keep the listener interested. So this is what a bad example would sound like. So as you can hear, that clearly doesn't work because it takes away all the rhythm that was created in the melody beforehand. Those are the types of things that you can take in or take out depending on what point in the verse you're in. So in this instance, this pad doesn't work because it has no rhythmic qualities. It's just a simple pad playing each bar. And the certain sounds that you do want to take are the ones with rhythmic qualities. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the main melody that plays in the chorus. So as you can hear, that sounds way better. So next section is verse 2 and 3. What this is the same pattern that's playing in verse 1, except there will be an additional sound that gets added to bring more energy. This will almost always be a layered pad, a basic lead melody, a kick, or an added snare. And the biggest mistake people make is that the sound they introduce to indicate that the second verse is coming in always has way too much rhythm and throws the entire beat off. So an example would be like layered pads that play a completely different progression, a lead melody that has way too many notes, and a kick or snare pattern that doesn't at all match the bounce that was originally introduced in the first verse.
This is a certified hood classic.
And the thing about bringing in a second sound for the second verse is that basically you want to keep the listener interested. If you were to play the same first verse on repeat for such a long period of time, and you just have the same melodic or drum loop playing over and over again throughout the entire beat, it's going to become stale and boring, and that's not what you want with your beats. So it's kind of like a trade-off. You want to be able to bring in new melodic and drum sounds to keep the beat more interesting, but you don't want to add too complex and too many sounds that overall will just ruin the beat altogether. It's all about finding that balance, and I don't think there's any producer in the rap game who finds that balance better than Metro Boomin. Metro Boomin almost always in his beats will have a new sound that gets introduced to make it more interesting. New drum patterns, new snares, change-ups in the 808, stuff like that. Songs that are great examples of this: Met Gala, Bad and Bougie, I Get the Bag, Up to Something, No Complaints, Rap Save Me, Darth Vader, Call Me, and so many more. Another great example is the Beat to X by 21 Savage because it showcases a lot of variation while not ruining the structure. So to explain this further, I'm basically going to break down that beat. There are various melodies that play throughout this beat. There are super basic melodies that don't change the rhythm whatsoever and don't change the progression whatsoever because they play on top of the main melody that plays throughout the beat. So the first one sounds like this. So that same melody also gets played later in the beat, so it's a different sound to keep it more interesting, but again, it doesn't change the complexity of the beat. So that sounds like this. And he also has a third verse change up in this beat that he uses with this chip sound. That sounds like this. And the reason that melody works so well is, for one, it's super repetitive. All the notes that it plays are layered on top of the chords that are played with the main bell melody, so it doesn't change anything with the notes. But the biggest thing to take away from it is it has no rhythmic qualities whatsoever. Each note plays on beat and is spaced consistently throughout the melody, so it actually plays along with the metronome, so it doesn't add any rhythm to it whatsoever. But if I were just to add one note, it would throw the entire beat off. So the next section is the chorus. So with the chorus, at all times, this is going to be the loudest part of your song. So it's going to be where you have most of your sounds playing at the same time. It's pretty self-explanatory. So as you can see here in this example beat that I made, you know that this point right here is when the chorus comes in, because it's the only point in the song where all the sounds are stacked up on each other. Every time you make a beat, it should always be like that. As for mistakes people make, apart from the obvious of not having this be the loudest part of your song, lack of transition effects, sounds, or in other words, indications that the chorus is coming is a huge mistake people make. So if you're going to want to bring in new sounds for the chorus, it's almost always going to be pads that are layered over melodies that have already been playing throughout the beat. So it doesn't change the melody overall, but it makes everything sound louder and more complete. You can also force avoiding sounds by basically using effects such as filters or volume automations in the hook, in the verses, in the intro, and the pre-chorus to basically make the chorus louder and give it that same effect, all while not changing any of the sounds. So here's a great example of this in a beat I used. This part here on the right is the chorus, this middle part is the pre-chorus, and this left part right here is the verse. As you can see, the sounds stay consistent at every point in this beat, but the only thing that changes is that there's two automations here that lower the volume and EQ out the highs of the two main melodies during the verse. So it's going to duck everything, but the melody is going to stay consistent throughout every point of the beat. So the next section is pre-chorus. This is usually a breakdown that gets played after the verses to indicate that the chorus is coming in. Usually what you want to do is you want to take the drums out for this part and keep the melodic sounds the same. You can choose which drum sounds to keep in and which ones to take out. And in certain cases, you can also add a bass line that'll play at this point. So there are various mistakes people make with this section. One of them is giving no indication that you're actually in a pre-chorus, and that's pretty self-explanatory, basically meaning that you don't take out any sounds, you don't really give an indication that you're stopping the beat or it's supposed to be a breakdown. Yeah, but apart from that, there's really not much more to it. So the last section is the outro. I'm gonna make this one pretty brief. This one's also self-explanatory. This is when you indicate that the beat is over. Usually this will just be played right after the final chorus is played in the beat. The only real mistake people do with this is that they basically will just copy and paste the verse that plays right after the chorus, and they won't change anything about it, so the artist doesn't know that the beat is ending. So with the outro, what you want to do is intentionally throw the artist off to make them stop rapping. And like we were talking about in the second verse section, the way you do that is you add new melodic sounds, you add new rhythms, one-shots, and effects that intentionally throw the artist off. So last example really quickly, here's another beat I made. This is how the chorus normally transitions into the verse. And this is how it transitions in the outro. But that's going to be it for me. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. Also subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to be dropping more tutorials like this every 3 to 4 days. Leave a comment, let me know what you think, considering that this was a very experimental tutorial from what I'm normally going to be doing. Let me know what you want to see next. Metro Boomin tutorial is on the way. And yeah, like and subscribe to the video, and peace.
This is a certified hood